One of the most respected careers in the world, as well as one of the most hopeful dreams of many, is that of one day becoming an astronaut. Though no one doubts that attaining such a position commands overwhelming respect, it appears that many seem to disregard this notion when dismissing the strange claims a number of astronauts have made during their time in space. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we will be going over 5 mysterious things that astronauts have experienced while in space. Yang Liwei heard a mysterious knock outside his ship. Back in 2003, China sent their first man to space. His name was Yang Liwei, and proved to be China's first ever astronaut that would also begin his first space mission as a solo mission, going to space completely alone without any additional members to join him. Although it is quite well known that isolation can play tricks on the mind, it appears that one of the strangest occurrences to have happened to Yang Liwei would also be one caught on recording. According to Yang Liwei, as he was sitting at the controls of the ship, he began to hear what first sounded like a banging sound. As he searched around the ship, he claimed to have heard the sound of someone knocking on the outside body of the spaceship, similar to that of a wooden hammer striking the side of an iron bucket. This led to him spending a considerable amount of time peeking out of the portholes of the ship in an attempt to catch a glimpse of whatever could have been knocking on the side of the craft. After some time, he had believed that perhaps he had misheard the anomaly, only to be reminded of his experience when the recordings captured the phenomenon in intense detail. Interestingly enough, the following Chinese solo missions, the space mission of 2005 and of 2008, had their astronauts also report the strange knocking sound occurring at random times during their missions. Today, the cause of these strange reported knocking sounds is still unknown, but appears to be a standard occurrence for Chinese missions to space. The Gordon Cooper Green Orb. One of the most influential American heroes of the 1950s, as well as the key figure in helping to locate a number of nuclear sites all around the world, was that of Major Gordon Cooper. Gordon Cooper has been a part of a number of top-secret missions in space, with several revolving around the use of highly advanced technologies to locate locations of interest all around the world. Interestingly enough, during one of his many space missions, he had claimed to have come into contact with an extraterrestrial craft. During Gordon Cooper's space mission that included a solo journey with a planned 22-orbit trip around the Earth, he claimed to have seen a glowing object that appeared to be a bright green begin to slowly approach his spacecraft as he viewed it through a porthole. Additionally, the approach of the object was also picked up by the Meuchia tracking station located in the town of Meuchia in Australia, confirming Cooper's encounter. This would lead to the astronaut eventually agreeing to take a 2-day mission in which he would work to analyze footage and evidence of extraterrestrial visitation of the planet that would eventually lead to him giving a speech at the United Nations to discuss his findings. During his speech, he described later coming across evidence of extraterrestrial craft, gathered evidence of anomalous aircraft, as well as stating the following: "I saw with my own eyes a defined area of ground being consumed by flames, with 4 indentations left by a flying object which had descended in the middle of a field. Beings had left the craft. There were other traces to prove this. They seemed to have studied topography. They had collected soil samples and, eventually, they returned to where they had come from, disappearing at enormous speed." Gordon Cooper would later go on to be a key figure in the alien awareness movement and claimed that his findings and studies were being covered up by the United States government under the claim that he was a national security threat for inciting panic, despite his many years working for the government and assisting with efforts during the Cold War. Dr. Story Musgrave and the Eel. Although the account of Dr. Story Musgrave details that of a strange creature outside of his spacecraft during 2 different solo space missions, he would later go on to claim that he does not believe that the sighting itself was evidence of extraterrestrial beings and were not that of alien spacecraft. According to the astronaut, as Dr. Story Musgrave was undergoing his solo mission, he described that he had begun to observe a strange snake-like creature following his craft. He would later provide an interview in 1994 in which he would state that the creature appeared to be a living snake that moved across space and followed his craft for quite some time. He believed that perhaps the creature was terrestrial and had gotten up to the upper atmosphere to journey close to the spacecraft. Additionally, Dr. Story Musgrave claimed that such creatures were commonplace in space, and that, during any prolonged space mission, it was relatively commonplace for him to see a space snake following behind the craft. Dr. Story Musgrave would also gather clips of video footage of the space snakes to which more closely resembled creatures similar to that of a pyrosome found deep within the ocean. These creatures have come to be known as the Musgrave eel and are formally rejected by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration as being a legitimate sighting of any kind. Dr. Story Musgrave claims that, to this day, he is not entirely sure what the creatures could be and that he has no explanation for his sightings. Cosmonauts cite giant angels. During the space race of the Cold War, the new anti-religion establishments of the Soviet Union led to a number of Soviet officials working as best they could in an attempt to eradicate all forms of religion amongst the population living within the Soviet Union. This would ultimately lead to the Soviet officials covering up a strange, almost supernatural event that took place high above the ground when Russian cosmonauts took part in some of the most well-funded space missions at the peak of the Soviet space program. Back in 1985, 6 Russian cosmonauts, cosmonaut veterans Leonid Kizim, Oleg Atkov, and Vladimir Solovyov, as well as cosmonauts Svetlana Savitkaya, Igor Volk, and Vladimir Dzhanibekov, all claimed that their ship was being followed by a large cloud of orange gas that had appeared suddenly in the area. As they attempted to outrun the cloud of orange gas, it suddenly consumed their ship and led to what has been referred to as the cosmonaut angel sighting. The 6 cosmonauts claimed that as their ship was consumed by the orange cloud, they witnessed what they described as 7 angelic figures floating outside the ship, staring at them through the portholes. According to further details, the creatures were made entirely from light, had a halo above their heads, had a smiling expression, were 20 meters tall, and had enormously sized wings that were equivalent in length to a modern commercial jet. The creatures floated outside the ship for 10 minutes before disappearing with the orange cloud. The strange angel sighting event has yet to be explained to this day. However, other astronauts and witness reports have surfaced that claimed to have seen similar images of such creatures while in space, as well as additional telescopic images showing large figures in orange clouds. Vladimir Kovalyonok witnesses a UFO explosion. Back in 1981, during his mission of which he was a part of a small crew manning the Soviet Salyut 6 orbital space station, Major General Cosmonaut Vladimir Kovalyonok claimed to have witnessed what was later described as being an unidentified flying object suddenly exploding in space outside of the orbital space station. Though not much can be found on the event, Vladimir Kovalyonok had this to say on the incident. "For 10 years I never spoke on such things. The encounter you asked me about happened on May 5, 1981 at about 6 p.m. during the Salyut mission. At that time, we were over the area of South Africa, moving towards the area of the Indian Ocean. I just made some gymnastic exercises when I saw in front of me, through a porthole, an object which I could not explain. It is impossible to determine distances in space. A small object can appear large and far away, and the other way around. Sometimes a cloud of dust appears like a large object. Anyway, I saw this object and then something happened I could not explain. Something impossible according to the laws of physics. The object had this shape, elliptical, and flew with us. From front view, it looked like it would rotate in flight direction. It only flew straight. But then a kind of explosion happened. Very beautiful to watch, of golden light. This was the first part. Then 1 or 2 seconds later, a second explosion followed somewhere else and 2 spheres appeared, golden and very beautiful. It would take more than 10 years after the incident before the cosmonaut would speak openly on the matter, as it had been immediately classified by the Soviet Union after the debriefing of the incident. Additionally, a fellow cosmonaut confirmed the sighting as he had attempted to take a picture of the ship but had only caught the images of its explosion shortly after. Today, no explanation has been offered for the event. But what do you all think of these strange and impossible to explain experiences that astronauts experienced while in space? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.